Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, Principal Atmospheric Scientist at Nutrient Ag Solutions, and I want to thank you for watching this weekly Ag Weather Update brought to you by the Farm Credit Associations of North Carolina. Well, as I've been doing the last couple of videos here, I want to keep you up to date on what's going on in the central United States with the flooding problem, because certainly, we talk about agriculture in the Carolinas, it's always going to be an interplay between what's going on there and on the other side of the Appalachian Mountains, and we're still dealing with a lot of flooding in through here. You've probably heard through the news, about the total damages that we've seen in parts of Nebraska, South Dakota, and Iowa, both in Nebraska, and then a separate, a kind of a number here for Iowa. We're talking about 2 separate billion-dollar weather disasters, and that's just damage done to the infrastructure. Well, there is still quite a bit of snowpack here in parts of North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin. That's all going to come down the Mississippi River here. So the flooding threat in the Central Plains is going to continue to be a problem. But let's talk about what's going on right now in the Carolinas. Well, on Sunday, we were watching this animation. This is the trailing edge of a pretty powerful little cyclone that moved through the middle part of the country here. And as this low pressure system progressed through, we saw some stronger thunderstorms that moved across basically points from St. Louis all the way down through parts of Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. Well, this is the storm system that over the weekend produced quite a bit of severe weather in through this area. It's on its way toward the southeast, and we're going to get those showers and thunderstorms here to the Carolinas throughout the day on Monday, but really into Monday night into Tuesday morning. Now, just to show you, they were quite vigorous. We saw quite a bit of lightning in the middle part of the country. In fact, look at this. The state of Oklahoma over the last 3 days, I think every single square inch saw lightning, but those storms were strong last Friday, producing quite a bit of severe weather in the panhandles of Oklahoma and Texas. Moved toward Oklahoma on Saturday, and then on Sunday really lined out here, and they're coming over toward the southeast. They're not going to be nearly as severe, but some stronger thunderstorms are certainly in the works. Now on Monday, we're going to see the main severe weather threat will be outside of the Carolinas. It's going to come right down into this part of Georgia and Alabama. And that's as that front trickles down into this area, it's going to be initiating those thunderstorms late in the evening on Monday. It'll be getting into Tuesday, overnight hours on Monday, but Tuesday morning that they get to the Carolinas. So let's kind of figure this one out, okay? We're going to look first at our high-resolution NAM model, and this was the evolution of those storms as we got throughout the day on Monday. Now, by the time we got into Monday evening and then Tuesday morning, we can see that the storms were progressing here Monday evening into early Tuesday morning across parts of the Carolinas here. So this was late in the evening on Monday, again, early Tuesday morning. Now, as the system moves through on Tuesday and gets offshore, things will clear out. Higher atmospheric pressure builds in behind this. You can see that by the time we get to mid-afternoon on Tuesday, we've really cleared things out here. And that's really going to be the name of the game after this. Things are going to be relatively calm throughout the Carolinas as we progress through much of this week. It may not be all the way until we get past the end of this week before we start to see things in terms of precipitation picking up again in the Carolinas. So if we just kind of put it all together through 8 a.m. on Wednesday, we see that those storms move through Monday night and Tuesday morning into this area. But I do notice this. Notice how the coastal regions here, as forecast by the high-resolution NAM model, aren't picking up on too much precipitation. And this is something we got to keep watching here. Latest update here from the U.S. Drought Monitor did show that this region in through here over the last 3 weeks has maintained its drier bias. And that's just something that's been quite interesting, because each system that's moved through has really taken on off to the north and east, which means that the fronts that it drags through have been relatively weak, and therefore we've missed out on precipitation across this region. So I'm going to keep a close eye on this as we progress forward over the next several weeks here into spring. Now, as we get into our bigger part of our forecast here, I want to talk about the major players moving forward and what this means for both temperatures and precipitation. So our next big system is moving into California by the time we get into Thursday. So there it is. This system here, by the end of the weekend, will be impacting the Carolinas. And what's happening at this time is there's 2 neat things that are happening. We have a high over low setup, so you can kind of see the flow of the atmosphere doing something like that out across parts of the Pacific here, getting up into Alaska. We're going to have what's called a wave breaking event that comes right over the top of this ridge and teams up with this trough, but not until we get into Friday, and it happens right there. And I know it's kind of subtle and probably not something a lot of people can pick up on, but that wave-breaking event is going to team up this trough sitting here north of the Hudson and the trough that snuck in through Northern California here into the Central Plains. Now, out ahead of this, quite a bit of warm weather, so we're going to have a pretty decent warm-up throughout this week. And this warm air advection that will be bringing in some warm, moist, and potentially some unstable air, such that by the time we get into the day on Sunday, this main trough is sweeping through the country, and it will be bringing in precipitation toward the end of the weekend and the beginning of next week. Now, the bigger story with this is going to be more about temperatures, I think, because as you can see here, this elongated trough stretching from the Hudson, getting all the way down to the Gulf Coast here, means some cooler air to start off April 2019. But it's really only going to linger around for, I think, the first couple of days of April, because here's the big feature. This trough goes retreating toward Greenland, a strong Pacific jet stream comes in, and that allows for a ridge to build across much of the East Coast. And that signals that once we get past the first couple of days of April, warmer conditions are coming back into play. Okay, with that as the setup, let's now watch what precipitation looks like. So as we play this forward, let's get you all the way out here to Wednesday. So we've seen the system come through Tuesday into Wednesday. Behind it, higher atmospheric pressure. So there it is. That's going to clear the skies out for the most part, bring in some cooler weather, but certainly going to be dry. Now that drier weather hangs on for a while because the main player as we progress through the middle part of the week will be this front kind of trailing right into this area, which keeps basically the Carolinas relatively dry, as all the main focus of the weather is going to be from the northeast all the way back through Illinois, Missouri, and getting back into the Central Plains. Well, it's going to be on that same boundary. See, I'm not going to move my line here. It's going to be on that same boundary that weekend system shows up. And as that weekend system gets going here, this is now Saturday morning. By the time we progress into Sunday, you can see that the main front of this system breaks on through that same region and comes right over here toward the Carolinas by the time we get into next Sunday evening. We might have to be watching out for some stronger thunderstorms at that particular time. This particular front will be much stronger than the ones previous to it, and that sweeps through Sunday afternoon next week into early Monday morning. So after the early week rainfall we have here in the Carolinas, we got to wait all the way until after really the end of next weekend before we get the next big shot at precipitation. So that's kind of how things are shaping up over the next week. Put it all together, looking at total accumulated rainfall, and just wanted to show you snowfall there on the map over on the right. We can see that throughout much of North Carolina, because of the two systems coming through over the next week, we're looking at adding, except when you get right up next to the coast, we're looking at adding an additional 3/4 of an inch, and in some locations about 1.5 inches, just depending on when and where those thunderstorms light up here as we get over to the East Coast with these next two systems that come through. Meanwhile, just to kind of keep you updated, we're putting down rain in Nebraska and Iowa. That is a location that just dealt with major flooding, and look at this, more rain right here over parts of the Mid-South and the lower Mississippi River Valley, continuing the flooding threat there. So that's why I want to keep you aware of the flooding problems we're having. Now, when we get out to week 2, I want to show you what the GFS model, this is the U.S. global model, looks like. And the GFS is picking up on a couple of interesting things. One, a pretty strong Pacific jet that's going to be hammering the Northwest, but also a strong subtropical jet, which looks to keep next week. So this is not, of course, this is next week after the two systems I told you about, keeping this area potentially wetter and stormier than average. So we're going to keep a very close eye on that. Now, when it comes to temperatures, out ahead of each one of these systems a warm up. When the high pressure comes in, cools down, and we're just going to go on a bit of a roller coaster ride with temperatures here. So you can see that by the time we get into midweek here, let's start this one over and watch it again. By the time we get into midweek, we've got some cooler weather hanging out here in the southeast. But the next system takes shape in the Central Plains, like I said, Thursday, Friday. And as that progresses over toward us by the end of the week, we have a cool week that builds into a warm weekend. And there's the warmth that comes out ahead of this next system by March 30th and 31st. But after this one goes through, look at the cooler weather that comes in behind it for the first couple of days of April. But it's only going to last the first couple of days because that ridge shows back up, and look at the warmth now for the Carolinas as we progress through the middle and end of the first week of April. And it looks as though that's going to be a kind of a permanent feature, at least for the near term, that ridge sitting there, keeping things relatively warm. Now, we know we've had an early spring across much of the South because of a warm February and some warmer conditions at times in March. And why I'm talking about this, because here we're looking at the U.S. National Phenology Network map. It's called the Spring Leaf Index Anomaly, saying, hey, looks as though spring has arrived a little bit early here. What I'm concerned about is this next system that comes through next weekend, possibly by next Sunday night into Monday morning, bringing some cool air into the area. And I'm showing you a frost probability map, and we can see that by Monday, the chances of us getting a frost pretty far to the southeast it's not zero. It's not high, but it's not zero. So I want to keep an eye on this. You should all be watching this too, because we get some really bitterly cold temperatures in there for this time of year, which means getting close to a frost. Well, that's significant, and we could possibly be doing some damage to our crops in this area. But after that, look at this. We certainly see that by the time we progress into the middle part of April, that the pattern is more than likely going to feature something like this, keeping warmer than average conditions over this area. But with that same pattern is also a very stormy pattern for us. Now, I want to give you a little bit of a brief global update. Something very interesting going on here. Come down to the east coast of Brazil, we actually have a tropical cyclone. Last time we had a tropical cyclone in this vicinity was 2004. So tropical cyclones are very rare in the South Atlantic. The water is typically too cold there. But here we have tropical cyclone Iba or Iba. I'm not sure what the correct pronunciation is. Thinking about Brazil, soybeans, corn, and cotton, certainly crops we deal with in the Carolinas here, we can see that over the next 15 days or so, well, Iba does this, so it's not a main factor, but it's sitting on a frontal boundary, which is going to be keeping a lot of Brazil wetter than average. And a lot of cotton and safrinha corn is right in through here, so this is important for those two crops. They're certainly going to be big crops. Drying out in southern Brazil, but this is not necessarily a problem. And the drier conditions you see in Argentina, not a problem either. In fact, parts of Cordoba, where I just drew that arrow, are projected to have their largest corn crop on record. And I want to finish up by taking you quickly here to Australia. We had a couple of tropical cyclones, Trevor here and Veronica here, that came on shore, and Trevor dropping anywhere between 7 and 15 inches of rain in some locations, little corridor in through here of 7 to 10 inches for Veronica. Well, Trevor is going to continue to cause problems as it moves towards Australia's main ag belt, which is right in through this area, bringing in quite a bit of precipitation. So these tropical systems are kind of a wild card this time of year for Australia. And just to kind of give you a quick long-range update here, just want to show you the latest update here from NOAA and the CPC. They're really calling for April to be, a month that's more than likely to carry a warm bias for much of the Carolinas. But also, I just want to let you know, the severe weather threat this year is elevated compared especially to last year. So we'll keep a close eye on it for you and keep you up to date as the season progresses. But with that, I'm going to wrap up this forecast video. I want to thank you for watching. We hope you have a great week, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you.